What changes would I make to the game for tanks and supports to make it better? Let's find out while we watch some more gameplay. So, starting off with Sazabi. Sazabi has an issue where it needs to be able to hold space. It needs to be able to be in positions securely and consistently, but it can't because of characters like primarily Barbatos and then RX-78 and then sort of turn a Gundam and then kind of with the ultimates of Zaku and Ashimar. So what do we do without that? The first option is make it that Sazabi can't be stunned through its shield. Instead, turn it into like it gets a little bit of a knockback or maybe knock back a little bit of damage or something from getting hit by a stun, but doesn't drop its shield. However, for that trade-off, Sazabi shouldn't be able to shoot while it's shielding. It's kind of a big change, but it's something that needs to happen for Sazabi. This way it can hold its space with its shield and still frag out. And it won't be a threat while it's actually shielding, so you can not feel like it's just going to walk in your face and kill you over and over again. And you'll have to target its shield really hard and force it out, which might require it gets a little bit of a shield buff also. Shield HP buff, and it'd essentially be Reinhardt with a shotgun. So, like Winston and Reinhardt merged together with a shotgun. Pretty interesting. But that's what it needs to be, because it can't be like it is right now. It's just inherently weak. So, yeah, like right now, it's just like a chunky damage character that does really well against non-stun enemies, but against enemies with stuns, it falls apart. Particularly against Barbatos and RX-78. Especially because RX-78 can make you drop your shield if you get hit by a Hyper Hammer, even if your shield's not up, which is ridiculous. Yeah. The other option, the non-nuclear option, is just to reduce the time that a Sazabi gets stunned and to reduce the damage if its shield is up when it gets stunned. So if it has its shield up and get hit by a stun, it takes reduced damage and reduced stun. That way it can still hold its space generally, but you can still pressure it out. Not ideal, but considering they might not want to change the way Sazabi is, they might have to do something like that. So, meh. For the sake of feel of the game, I would really, really like them to give Sazabi a Winston jump. So instead of having to throw your tomahawk and then go dive onto it, which is a pain in the butt and it's also really predictable, I want them to just make it just a free jump. So yeah, that would be really, really nice. Also, the tomahawk is hot garbage and it really, really needs adjusted. It is the worst stun ability I've ever seen in any game ever. It has the tiniest hitbox. Like I swear I've threaded it between characters' legs before, and like under their armpit and things like that. And it's super, super slow, and it also has a really weird cast time, like a cast time after you press the buttons. That all needs to be fixed up. There's a lot of things in the game like that. They need to be fixed up too. But the permanent sights ability for 5 seconds is so OP. If you're playing with a GM sniper and you pop that ability, nothing can peek. They will just die. It makes the game a little bit less fun in general when enemies already know where you are, because then you have to be paying so much more attention to like, oh, am I being scouted right now? Is there that thing in the bottom left corner that shows I'm being scouted? Because then you're just gonna get trashed, and it's a pain in the butt. And like I said, if it gave like general like pinging information about where things are, that's fine. But like Sonic Arrow for Hanzo, but having like literally their exact icon like a Widow ultimate is literally insane how it's standard ability. Like it's blowing my mind how strong that is. All right, so moving on to Marasai, they need to buff it to a tank. Sorry guys, it's not an actual tank right now. It's literally just a garbage damage character that they gave a hook for some reason. I ran into so many situations where I was fighting in a 1v1 with somebody and I tried to hook them and I missed them because it was awkward and inconsistent. And I was just thinking, well, why would I even try and do that when I could just click on their head 3 times and headshot them and kill them? It was only good for like little pot shots and for hooking a Sazabi. But otherwise you could just duel them faster, more consistently too. So what should they do to that character then? Marasai needs to not have the damage buff that they were talking about in the patch notes. That is not what it is. That'll just make it a damage dealer that's still going to be worse than other ones like RX-78 and Pale Rider, while not actually playing to its strengths. So buff it to 1400 HP, and give it a damage reduction when it hits its hook. The damage numbers and the HP numbers might need to be worked on a little bit, but the problem was you'd walk into the open or even on a corner and you'd hook something, and if there was anything on the enemy team looking at you, you were going to die. So that's why it was better to just click on things a lot of times instead of actually using your hook ability, which is really bad considering it's a hook character. So why are we going to even have a hook if that's the case? They also need to buff the hook speed and consistency, which is what they're doing, so that it's just not funky. It needs to, like, you press the button and you know it's going off, like when it should, basically, what makes sense. Not this weird, like you put your hand out and then it goes. You know, it's just strange. And then they probably need to nerf some of the weird things you can do with like dragging people with it, because you can drag them really far, which is strange, but it's cool. It's cool and fun, but it can be OP. Yeah. So the ult shouldn't disappear if you die in the middle of it. I don't like that, and it probably needs a little bit of a nerf. It stuns for a long time. It was like the only good thing about Marasai. Really fun though. Dom Trooper. A lot of you might not understand this, but Dom Trooper could break the game. Armor Pack is the issue. Armor Pack drops a solid 500 HP on any target that it chooses that slowly decays. Now, if you drop 500 HP on a Zaku, we're getting like what? Like quick math, 67% value off of that? 75%? Yeah, whatever. We're getting like, you know, drastically large percentage of the HP. Whereas if I drop it on a Sazabi, I'm getting like 40%, right? And so it makes it so you can't, because 500 on 1400 raises us up less percentage wise than it does on a Zaku. And so it basically makes it so you can't balance flankers that well, because then become insanely OP, because then you have issues like a tracer with a pack will, sorry, not a tracer, although this was the problem in Brigida, but with overheal, it also changes breakpoints essentially, so that things that you could kill them with before, now you can't if they have a pack. So it's just like necessary to play that character to pack them. It allows them to duel another flanker and just beat them regardless. And it really just makes them oppressive because they have tiny hitboxes. So what do we do instead? We need to make it Zarya. That's really what this character is supposed to be. It's supposed to be Zarya. So give it a CC reducing ability, like a bubble. That makes it so you want to use it on tanks, because tanks are the ones that take CC and damage characters are not. So we use it on tanks, which is what an off tank is supposed to do. It's supposed to support a tank. And then if something is getting dove upon, you can give them the armor pack also. And when I say CC reducing, I mean CC resistance in addition to damage, like invulnerability, just like Zarya's ability works like. So it's not oppressive on tanks because tanks are, you can run away from them. They just get space from it. They don't get like an insta kill on something. Yeah, but basically the other thing I have with Dom Trooper that I'd like to see changed is if they do that, it's going to get weaker, because then you can't just pack a Dom Barbatos and let it go crazy. And so I really like to see the benefit of playing Zarya was, and like the really, really, really well designed character kit for Zarya was, if I bubble something, it is incentivizing using your abilities to help your teammate. There's issues with that in these games, people being selfish, but if you bubble your teammate, then they get to go run off and have fun and be invulnerable for a little bit, which is good for them and makes them have fun. But it also gives you extra charge, and so you do more damage. And then you can push into the space that you were made, and then you can enforce it. Dom Trooper doesn't have that. So honestly, I'd love to see that happen. I'd love to see it just be changed into that entirely. But they probably won't do that. So maybe we can get a little bit of a buff on like your rockets, or the laser might be solid. Like to the point where instead of having to like hit 2 rockets and then hit the laser, you could just hit a rocket and then a laser to finish it off if you were charged up. Moving on to the supports, even though Dom Trooper could arguably be considered one too. GM was super, super fun. I love that character. I played it a bit less than I did Sazabi, but it was so, so much fun. It was basically Brigida if Brigida was designed well. But what changes I would add to it is that the C4 ability needs to not have like a long, weird cast time. In addition to, it needs to be able to travel a little bit further and maybe a little bit faster. It's not too oppressive because you can destroy it. Just otherwise, it was really weird, and you just like have to go shove your face into a wall to be able to put it somewhere. And then basically wherever you threw it, if you press the button, you start firing. You put yourself on fire, and it's just strange. Really, really fun and really strong. Probably could do with a damage nerf, but really, really fun. But does need that change a little bit. Anything that you throw in this game probably needs to looked at on the timing that you throw it, or the like the speed it goes. I don't really have a problem if they want to make it so GM can still aim or still shoot and use its shield. Then it just needs to be able to be stunned through shield. That's okay. That's perfectly acceptable. Then it's just a damage blocking shield. The other thing that I was going to talk about with GM is that the healing grenade is so slow that you can't throw it at anything. You literally just have to toss it down at your feet or toss it at someone who you know is going to be standing right there. There were times when I first started playing it that like my Barbatos was coming back and it was low and I was like, oh, I'll throw my grenade at it and heal it. And then it just dashed away. And it literally dodges my ability unintentionally just because of how slow it is. So that needs a change. It would be much more fun if it's fast, like on a grenade, just consistent. It's just one of these things that like you can work around playing against it, but it just feels really bad to have that like that. So yeah, really strong character though. People don't really think that, but it's really strong. For Methuss needs to have a longer range and more forgiveness with its healing beam. Just like Mercy's beam is what it basically needs, where it has a little bit of a longer range, so you have more forgiveness with your positioning. But if it goes through something, like it clips through an object, it takes about 2 seconds and then it breaks. Right now it breaks like almost instantly, so you have to be putting it on constantly. And also please give us an option to hold to use it, because I'm not comfortable with press to use it, and it felt really weird. I didn't like playing Methuss because of that. Yeah. Everything else about Methuss is solid. I don't really know why we have a turret. It's a little bit strange. Don't think it even needed it, but if you haven't seen part 1 of the damage section of this video type, then go make sure to check that out too. And if not, then just go watch these mobile suit guides. They're really, really good. They get lots of information on the 6 that I have done.